This is Heather Wahlberg. She works for Together for Good, and she also hosts kids too. But she is going to come up and she's going to kind of give a little bit more of the. She's going to give the organization kind of mission and what they do in story a little more in depth than what Stephanie and I did when we shared about our personal experience in the Daniels a couple weeks ago. And then also when we do the training in September, for those of you, we're hoping as many people can make it as possible, but she's also going to be doing the training. So it'll be a familiar face when that Saturday comes around and we, get to talk about what it looks like actually to host and all the things we go through. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and she is going to kind of tell us about Together for Good.
Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. This is actually my first info meeting at a church, which I do like the 3-hour-long training, so this should be super simple, but it's really exciting to see all your faces. And I'm actually really passionate about the local church and how our ministry, I tell people this all the time, some parachurch ministries can take away from the body. And I feel like our ministry at Together for Good really feeds into the local church. So I'm excited to share that with you. So yes, my name is Heather. My husband is Alex, and we've been married for 17 years, I think, since 2007. We have 5 kids, and we have 2 extra children with us that we were not expecting to have. That started in June, and it's actually a really amazing story to see how God orchestrated that this summer, and it all actually relates to my job at Together for Good and the ministry that he's given me through that organization. So if you come to the training, I will tell you the story of how he is working in our lives in that way. And then, I started out as a case manager, which we'll talk about that a little bit today, a year and a half ago. And when you work at a small nonprofit, everybody kind of does a little bit of everything. So that has now grown to, I do the trainings, and we have a monthly support group little training session called Growing Deeper. I also run those. I do home assessments, so if you decide to be a host family, I might be in your house walking you through that process. And I also work with the advocates, so that's like the mentors that we have that go offer relationship to the moms that participate with us. So a little bit of everything, but I really love it, and so we'll probably get to know each other a little better if the Lord leads you to join us at Together for Good. All right, so we're going to jump in here, and I'm just going to ask you some questions to get you thinking. So who would you call in a real emergency? If you went into labor, where would your 2- and 3-year-old children go? Do you have people in mind that you could call? If you were diagnosed with cancer, who would watch your son while you went through chemotherapy? Or what if you were hit by a car and needed someone to pick up your child from the hospital so you could have emergency surgery? These are all real situations that the moms that are in our program deal with, and they have no one to call, and that's how they come to us. So for these moms, Together for Good is that person in the emergency that steps in, which is really you. So some of you may have seen this video, but we want to make sure you all get a chance to see the value in creating pathways between you, the local church, and people in our community that we can truly be the hands and feet of Jesus too. So I'm going to show you this video, and then we'll talk a little more.
Imagine a group of believers who were so full of Christ's love that they sought out the poor in their communities, fed the hungry, cared for the orphans, and invited strangers into their homes. This was the early church, and they made sure that the vulnerable were cared for. But for some reason, hurting families today don't always experience this sort of radical love from the church. Instead, many families have become isolated, especially single parents who often have no family to turn to, no one they trust to ask for help. It begs the question, where is the local church in the midst of this? Oftentimes, people in the church want to help and want to love their neighbors as Christ would. But the problem is, they simply don't know how to connect with the hurting families in their communities. Together for Good exists to create pathways for the local church to come alongside vulnerable children and families in Christ-centered ministry. Unfortunately, even loving parents without strong connections become vulnerable in times of crisis. If job loss, homelessness, or a medical emergency occurs while they are trying to care for their children, it may be too much to handle alone and could eventually lead to child abuse or neglect. If this happens, the government steps in, removes the child from the home, and places them into the foster care system. Being separated from their parent is traumatic and is often only the start to a scary and difficult journey. But wait, what if none of this had to happen? What if the child never had to experience this much trauma? What if instead the church came alongside the parent early on and strengthened the family? We believe this is the solution, and Together for Good makes it simple for people like you to get involved. You can start with something small like driving a mom to a doctor's appointment or dropping off supplies when she has unexpected expenses. Or you could volunteer to host a child at your home for a few days when their parent faces a crisis. These things make all the difference for a struggling parent. When they're connected to a network of caring people, it brings life, hope, and healing to their hearts, which in turn cultivates a safe, loving environment for their children. God is raising up a generation, like the early church, whose hearts beat for justice and mercy, who are willing to lay down their lives for the hurting and the broken. To get involved, go to our website and fill out our volunteer interest form. Together, we can uplift parents and keep kids out of foster care. Together, we can build strong families and connected communities. Together, we can answer Christ's call to love our neighbors until all families are together for good.
And I know you guys, I think some of you may have already seen it, but have you ever read, I'm sure you have, the passage in James 1:27 that says, "Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress," and wondered, that sounds great, but where do I find those widows and orphans? Sometimes they walk through the doors of the church, but there are many who do not. So as an organization, we at Together for Good want to come alongside you to fulfill the call of believers to take care of the widow and orphan. We want to be that bridge so that we can experience what true religion really looks like. And there's a book by Dane Ortland called Gentle and Lowly, which you might be familiar with. And in it, he says something that I just think encapsulates the heart of Christ and the heart of a volunteer at Together for Good. And he says, well, here, it's up on the screen. "So when Jesus Christ sees the fallenness of the world all about him, his deepest impulse, his most natural instinct is to move toward that sin and suffering and not away from it." And you may be thinking, I'm not in a place in my life to provide respite care for little ones, but there are many ways that you can be involved, and we'll talk more about that in a few minutes. But it's just giving you that opportunity, and as a church body, you can link arms and do that together. Because of what Christ has done for you, you can then lean into that brokenness rather than what may be our natural instinct is to lean away. So as an organization, we recognize the need to address the felt needs of an individual. And this comes in the practical sense for providing respite care. This looks like referring moms to social services such as food banks, shelters, inpatient or outpatient treatment, resources for medical needs, etc. So we all have, these moms that come in crisis have felt needs, which we, those logistical, practical needs. But that is not enough. That doesn't bring about change. That doesn't bring them out of this crisis situation. It may be a temporary fix, but that doesn't bring transformation. We have a book that we're reading this summer at Together for Good called Becoming Whole, Why the Opposite of Poverty Isn't the American Dream, and it's by Brian Fickert and Kelly M. Kapik. One of them was the author of When Helping Hurts. Maybe you've heard of that book. And they say, while it is helpful to distinguish between the body and soul, we should avoid separating them. This has huge implications for the design of poverty alleviation ministries. People are whole people, so partial solutions that address either the body or the soul will not work as well as solutions that address both body and soul. So at Together for Good, we don't just stop at those felt practical needs, we strive to meet those soul needs as well. And how does that happen? Through relationship. The same way the needs of your soul have been met through a relationship with Jesus Christ, is how we can then turn around and offer that to a participant in Together for Good. So, as you have once experienced being dead in your sin and now alive in Christ because of what he did for you on the cross, you are now able, like I said, to offer a relationship with the people we serve because it's not based on a transaction, which is what these moms are used to. Everybody is a resource to help them get what they need, but now it's based on the unconditional love that we have experienced with Christ. So just as you as a church family are able to function as the body of Christ, we want to enable you to do the same for the participants at Together for Good. This is a beautiful model that looks slightly different in every church. And currently we have about 45 partner churches in the Twin Cities. And I think you have already seen this video, but we want to show it to you again just as an example of what it could look like at Twin Cities Bible Church here. So we'll watch this video.
In the year following the initial lockdown and the initial phase of the pandemic, we started to notice some of the social service agencies, nonprofits, government agencies that people were really relying on not reopening after the pandemic, and so people are without some of the helps that they used to count on. We have received increasing numbers of calls from social workers from government agencies all over the city, calling because they don't know where else to send their clients for help. Grace Evangelical Free Church, which is a very small church in Wyoming, Minnesota, had become aware of the increasing needs in Minneapolis and St. Paul and reached out to us to find out how they could mobilize their congregation.
Interestingly, of all the people that resonated most with the vision of Together for Good was my wife, Jerry. Immediately, her mind started spinning as to how she could rally people around this cause. She knew it was going to be bigger than any one person or even any few people.
We're so thankful to see the number of people that are doing their part, whether it's big, small, or, just working together to make this all happen. Between 65 and 70% of our church is involved in some way with the ministry of Together for Good.
I'm Nicole, and I'm a host mom for Together for Good. And we just thoroughly love to take in these kids and love them and teach them about Jesus.
I'm Sue Ann, and I manage the Together for Good meal support team here at Grace. And this is where we store our meals when people bring them in to be delivered to the families.
I'm Donovan.
I'm Laura.
And we're on the supply team for Together for Good. And we just gather up and organize supplies for host families, and we just kind of organize it in the closet here.
My name is Grace Robbins, and I am a driver for Together for Good. I deliver whatever needs are necessary either to moms or host families, whether it's meals or supplies. I just make sure it gets where it needs to go.
I am on a prayer team here for Together for Good, and I pray for the host families. I pray for the moms or the people being supported and the children that are being cared for.
In 20 years of pastoring, I have never seen a church come together like this, where more people have been able to use their gifts.
The first year that we started, we had 29 postings in a whole year. In 2022, we had already hit that by the first quarter.
Increasingly, we've been able to say yes to more and more and more calls from the community because we have churches like Grace that are building out these teams. This model of equipping churches to do the work in their community is so infinitely scalable. And we can only imagine if every church in the Twin Cities was coming together in the name of Jesus to reach out in their community the way Grace has done.
I hope that is inspiring and exciting for you, and I hope you see that, like we said, there's no end to the possibilities, how the Lord can use the churches in the Twin Cities to do the work that He's called us to change lives and offer hope to the women and some men, but mostly women that come through our doors. So yeah, and the values here, we'll talk about more in the training on September 28th, but these are just some of the things that we hold on to, and all of it is elaborated much more on our website also if you're interested in looking at that, but have found that it's fairly easy to align with many different believers in the Twin Cities here. So you may have looked at that video, or you may be thinking through like, what would this actually look like? Or I know you heard the experiences from the Daniels family and the Smith family. You may be thinking, I don't know how qualified I am to do this work. And this is just something that has encouraged me, and it's a quote from Madeleine L'Engle, if you're familiar with that author. She said, "In a very real sense, not one of us is qualified, but it seems that God continually chooses the most unqualified to do his work, to bear his glory. If we are qualified, we tend to think that we have done the job ourselves. If we are forced to accept our evident lack of qualification, then there's no danger that we will confuse God's work with our own, or God's glory with our own." And that's what we want, is to be a vessel that God uses. And so I just want to encourage you to think about that when you think and pray about how God would have you be involved. Yeah, and you'll see on the screen what we ask every church and person who partners with us to align with us on. And like I said, we talk more about this at the training. And then just a little bit of an overview of what we do in practicality here. So as volunteers, you would possibly be helping to protect children, care for parents. We all do it because we want to promote family preservation, and we want the church, which is you, to offer what social services cannot, and that's relationship. So that looks like emergency crisis hostings, which you have experienced in your church family already. So temporary hostings of children to give parents a safe option during a crisis or urgent need. And then those happen like in a span of a month, probably 5 or 6 situations where we have crisis needs that come up. Sometimes 10, sometimes 2, but on average. And then supportive respite hosting, so that's every 4 to 6 weeks. You could offer respite care to a mom who just doesn't have community and needs support, needs a break. And those happen, we probably do between 20 and 30 every weekend right now. And then relational support, so parent advocates are what we call them. And they offer relationship support and prayer to the participant, which is what we call the adults that are in our program. And that looks very different depending on how God has gifted you and equipped you, but it's incredibly valuable. And then lastly, what we call wraparound care. So these are support volunteers, and I think maybe Stephanie has talked about this, but basically to help meet the tangible needs and so of both volunteers. So maybe it's bringing a meal to a family that is hosting, or we do what we call, what are they called, gift baskets. We're like right now, every school age child in our program, which I can't think of the number off the top of my head right now, maybe like 250 in the Twin Cities, has received a backpack with school supplies in it. And the special thing is that it's not just like, we're not just dropping it off and running. We have context of, they're in this program, and we try to do it where, let's say Stephanie and her family are hosting a child regularly, and then someone else from the same church, maybe that they've seen before, comes and we do like the backpacks, and then we do a Christmas gift, and we do Easter basket, and they start to have context for yet another avenue of relationship. And you're inviting them to church. You're saying, we have a Christmas Eve service, we'd love for you to come. And it's just another point of contact. And so even though it may be you know, a couple times a year that you're doing something, it still matters. Every avenue of relationship helps and makes a difference. So all of these are what, like, this is our organization. It's what our volunteers are able to do. That's, you make up the organization. And so this graphic might be helpful. I'm a visual learner. I like to have a visual. As you try to wrap your mind around how we function in our capacity as a small nonprofit. So this would be like what one case manager does, and we have, let's see, I think 2 full-time case managers and then a couple part-time. And a case manager is responsible for about 50 participant families. And this could be up to 200 children because a lot of our moms have more than one child. And then if you think about all those hostings, we try to have children hosted one-on-one with a family. That doesn't always happen, but we try to do that just so that they have more attention and time with one family. And so this could be up to 100, 150 host families from many different churches represented. So you'll kind of see the participants, the host family and volunteers that are involved, the churches that are represented, and then the number of advocates. So those are like, if the mom is in our program and like has had maybe 2 hostings, we know she's going to be around and she's ready to have the opportunity to build a relationship with somebody, then we match them with an advocate. And that can look like getting together for coffee once a month and reaching out, or even sending a text message with a verse and just saying, how can I be praying for you this week? It doesn't have to be where you're driving her to every doctor appointment and taking them back to school shop. You know, it looks very different in every relationship, which I think is beautiful. So I hope you have questions. We're going to have time at the end for you to ask questions, because there's a lot of moving pieces that go into this ministry, and I want you to come away with a good understanding of what it looks like. But do you remember when I asked at the very beginning, what would you do if you had chemotherapy treatments and you had no one to watch your children? Well, do you remember the question I asked about being hit by a car? This actually happened. We got a call from a mom needing help, and we could say yes to her and surrounded her with a village of Christians to love her, and we got her upstream in the crisis. If she hadn't been able to find anyone to watch her child, CPS would have had to come, and the child would have had to go into the foster care system. And I'm sure it wouldn't have been a long time, but it's a lot more complicated, and it would have taken a lot longer than it would need to for them to be reunified. And so we're going to meet Shireen and see how the Lord used the ministry at Together for Good and the volunteers to be a village for her.
My name is Shireen. My daughter's name is Divine. The best thing about being Divine's mom is being able to be there for her, being able to show her new things about the world. So this was last year, August. It wasn't a good summer day, but we decided we was going to the water park anyway. Here's a car out of the blue, but she was coming at a fast enough pace that the car hit me. Divine, she's fast. She was able to get across the street before me. And thank God it wasn't her that got hit.
When Shireen called me, she was in a desperate situation. She had just had emergency surgery, and the hospital was telling her that she needed to go to rehab for 6 to 8 weeks. All of her family lives in New York, so she had nowhere for Divine to go. And so the hospital at that point brought up foster care.
It was very scary. I didn't know what type of people my daughter would be staying with. I was also scared that I might not get my daughter back. So when I first heard about Together for Good, it was a big relief in the hospital, to know that that was a better option. Nicole, she was a great host for Divine. Knowing she was with a good family really helped my healing process. It just helped me to focus on wanting to get better so that, I can be home with her.
In addition to finding a host family for Divine, we were also able to pair Shireen with a parent advocate.
The parent advocate, it's a role that it was just particularly appealing to me, that it was mostly one of relationship with the intention of just being a friend.
Brenda, she feels like family in a way because she checks in with me, sends me either a verse out the Bible every day or a devotion. She plays as a mother, as a sister, or a friend to me, and I like that. I began to ask her what church she went to and that I was interested in going to church, primarily because my daughter started going to church with Nicole, and I still wanted her to be a part of a church. She enjoys going to the kiddie church part of it. I enjoy church as well, It's been better for my mental health. It is building my spirituality and bringing me closer to God.
Divine's birthday was in May. Our church volunteered to let us use the space and to use one of their bounce houses. So we invited the kids from her Sunday school class. Everyone was so kind and generous. They brought gifts, had a great birthday cake, and it just a lot of fun.
The last few birthdays was just me and her. So just having a new community, I have so much gratitude.
Shireen's story is a great example of how the church can come alongside a mom who is in a desperate situation with little to no support and provide a community where she feels that she belongs and she is known and she is loved. And that's what our heart's desire is at Together for Good, is that relationships would be built and moms and children and families would be folded into the body of Christ through the local church.
Yes, I love her getting squished at the end there. So I love what Noelle said about the mom just wanting to be known and loved. And isn't that what we all want? And we are known and fully loved by the Lord. And we can offer that to these moms. And that's such a powerful, life-changing thing. So I have these slides here, what you can do next. And all of this, I think, you can find on our website, or maybe you have a church email that is going to be sent with all this information. And then, in a little over a month, I will be back here to do the training, and it's what we require all our volunteers to go through just so we can all be aligned on the mission of Together for Good, and then also to understand like all the different roles a little more in depth and what does it actually look like to host a child, what does it look like to be an advocate, and how can Twin Cities Bible Church function in a way to enter into this ministry if that is what God is calling you to. We also have links here to Facebook and Instagram so you can see what we have going on. There's a gala coming up in November. It's a nonprofit. We need money so we can do this. That's in November. And like I said, those Growing Deepers, but support groups that we have every month. But what questions do you have? I love to hear, as your wheels are turning, what is it that you're wondering or anything like that. So, yes, go ahead. Oh, that's a great question. Probably, and I don't know specifically for her, but I'm guessing it was a hospital social worker. So now that Together for Good has been in existence for a little over 7 years, word is getting out in the community, and we're able to step in situations like that. And so we are actually, I should maybe say this, we're turning away a lot of moms because we don't have enough people or enough case managers even to take all of them in. And so there's plenty of work to be done. But yeah, that's a good question. Yes. Yes. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, so she asked if they can't be here for the training on the 28th. We're doing trainings every month, and so they're all over the Twin Cities, but mostly at our headquarters in St. Paul. Good question. Yes.
So we live across the border,
Oh,
across the river.
Wisconsin.
Rumor has it that you might be starting over there.
You heard correctly. Yes, Hudson, there's quite a few churches in Hudson that are interested, and because of I don't want to get into it too much, but when you host a child, we have the mom sign paperwork saying that you have parental authority for the weekend that you host, and we can't do that across state lines. And so it is exciting that the churches in Wisconsin have raised enough money to hire a case manager who will be hopefully a licensed social worker. If we're praying for that, so you can be praying for that, and then we can offer that for families that want to host in Wisconsin. Let's see, if it's not, I don't think it's on the website like this week that we're hiring for that, but it will be in the next like 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, good timing. Yeah. Yes. Oh yes, do we present, you mean like the opportunity to serve at big corporate companies? Okay. Oh yeah.
About the backpacks and
Oh.
they do gathering for school supplies and
Okay.
essentials, and they fill them up the bags and they hand them out to kids, as young adults.
Yeah, so she's wondering if we go to corporations and present needs to corporations. We actually typically don't. It would be like your church, once you're on board with Together for Good, you could go and present the opportunity. Like I said, we are a nonprofit, so if people want to give or you want to invite people to the gala and you could host a table, that would be a great way to get people's foot in the door. But as far as volunteering, we keep that like within local churches. Yeah, good question. Yeah, anybody else? Yes.
Bring to help families, all that is set up within the church
Yes.
by 4 or 5 people that are in charge of food, supplies, all of that driving. It's set up within the church.
Yes.
At the church building or?
So we have a role called a ministry coordinator. And so some churches have a couple people that basically are on every email and know when the Daniels family are going to host. The ministry coordinator will be on that email and they'll say, reach out, it's Cassie, right? And say, hey Cassie, do you guys need diapers? Do you need a pack and play? How can we be praying for you this weekend? And you're kind of like the ministry coordinator is the point person to then communicate that to the rest of the church or the people that want to know. At my church, I go to Redeemer Bible Church in Minnetonka. We have like a Facebook page for the Women of Redeemer, and we'll do like a meal train if it's like for a long-term hosting, or if somebody needs 3T boy clothing, they'll put it on there, and that's just like a quick way to get needs out there, but it looks different in every church, like I said. But yeah, good question.
That'll be Stephanie and I starting out, like the ministry coordinator spot. And then obviously when we talked about it a couple weeks ago, we were saying, then we'll need other people to volunteer, kind of fill in some of those things. Like, when we watch that, this way people can hear. So what I was saying is that'll be Stephanie and I kind of as the ministry coordinator role. So we'll know when people are hosting and be able to help. But I think Stephanie kind of mentioned that, and she's even got more information too, if we have time today, about other opportunities where, like when we watched that video about Grace Church in Wyoming, there's somebody that's in charge of the food. So we won't be doing every single thing, but we'll be able to help kind of organize things and also be able to just communicate, keep people up to date on where things are at and what we need. So you can talk to the two of us. I know also Matt and Cassie are going to be pretty involved. So if you got questions, you can ask them. They also have a lot of answers for hosting too. You know, if you were here 2 weeks ago when we shared, you heard about their hosting. They've already done, did you say 7 this year? They've already done 7 since the beginning of the year. So, we've done some longer term ones. They've done some more shorter respite things, but more often. So there's a lot of opportunities, but to answer your question specifically, you can talk to Stephanie and I for now.
And if you're a host family, you have to host every weekend. Just kidding. You could host one time, like there's no obligation. Yes.
So it sounds like you're Twin Cities and ministry. Are you thinking of expanding across the nation?
So we actually have a location in Waco, Texas, and then in Iowa, it's sort of Des Moines, but it's kind of all over in Iowa. We just hired 2 people that are going to help us take steps. I mean, as you can see, this is replicable in every city, and so it's just managing that. How do we're everything, all the processes and everything we're doing to be able to replicate this, and then so we're working on that and excited to see what God does. Yeah.
I'm curious on the time frame that a host family learns that there's a child available or to be able to host. Do they get an email on a Monday for a Friday, or like what does that look like for a time frame?
It's different all the time. We weekly send out what we call the opportunities for good, and that is so a lot of the needs, the case managers will call you directly. I'm guessing, like Cassie, I've probably called you to ask about needs before. If we can't find somebody that's available, they go on this email. So like I said, there's like 20 to 30 hostings on a weekend, and the email will have 2 to 7 needs that are posted, and so you can always respond to that. There's also, especially in an emergency situation, we'll send out a text because sometimes we need those filled like as soon as possible. Often it's a mom that is in major depression, needs to go on a hold in a hospital, and so we'll meet at the hospital and pick up the children. And then so sometimes, like if we know in advance, we try to book out as far in advance as we can to give people time to plan and prepare, but sometimes it can be minutes, and obviously we never want anyone to feel pressured or anything like that. And I think God equips host families differently. So some are able to just drop everything and go to the hospital, go to HCMC and meet us at the doors in an hour. And then some need a little more time to plan and prepare, and that has to do with your season of life and just the different way God's equipped you. So there's like never any pressure at all. And we try to communicate that when we ask, like, this is the need, please don't feel pressure, and it's often through text because we're, as you saw, like I have hundreds of Cassie Daniels, TFG host mom, in my phone. And so I text a lot because I can't keep it all in my brain. So just know that we're holding a lot of balls in the air, the case managers. Yes.
Approved host family, are you on like an email chain that you're getting weekly or something like that?
For sure, the opportunities for good. And then we have a database that you're in. I also put all new host families. So let's say you go through the training, you finish your paperwork, you do the home assessment, everything. Then you get put on a board because we don't want to lose new people. We want to make sure they get a hosting. And so we will start with that. And then we're also doing a new thing for the Type A planners, which helps us a lot. To fill out like for a couple months in advance, these are the weekends that we're available. So we also have a board in our office for the weekend of the, September 6th through the 8th, these 12 families have already told us they're available, and we reach out to you often when you do that. So good question. Yes.
A number of years ago, I'm thinking it was about 5 years ago, we hosted a training meeting here.
Okay.
And some of us attended and have done a few volunteer opportunities, but it's been a number of years. Do you suggest that we come again
Yes.
For refreshment?
Yes.
It's been about 5
Yeah.
years.
Yep. Some of the beauty of working in a nonprofit is we're always evolving and streamlining and really honing in on a clear, united mission. And I would say from 5 years ago, we probably look fairly different, and in our function even of how to go through the process of volunteering looks different. So yes, we don't have an official policy yet, but I think it'll be required to renew your volunteer approval status every 3 years. So I would say if you haven't been to a training in the last 3 years, you should for sure come. Good question. And do you need me to repeat what people are asking, or can you hear each other? Repeat? Okay. Yes.
What ages are the children? Is it newborn to 18?
Yep.
Is it
She asked what ages are the children. So part of who we're saying no to is moms with older kids, because it is a different, you need a lot more training, I think, to deal with teenagers, and we don't have volunteers that are necessarily equipped to do that at this time. So it is rare that we will host a child over the age of 10. We definitely have some, and we have children that started out with us at 8, 9, and now are 12, 13, 14, but just because of the nature of needs and the unpredictability that can happen, we are doing a lot more in the toddler 5 and under category, I would say. That's a good question. Yes.
How do you deal with placement of school-aged children during the school year if they're enrolled in school?
Yep. So most of what we do is the weekend respite care. When mom, let's say there's a surgery and mom needs someone to take kids for the surgery and then her month-long recovery or something like that, we cannot guarantee that we can find people, but if mom's desperate enough, and the only person we can find is in a different area, sometimes they're willing to drive the kids into school. Sometimes they'll fold them in if they're homeschooling or something like that, or sometimes they'll enroll them in their school district. We always try, to start to find people close in that area, and we have host families all around the Twin Cities, so it is an option, but I would say it just looks very different depending on the situation, but we do try to, and the Lord often does provide, it's amazing to see his hand at work, equipping the right family in the right timing, in the right place, and it's humbling because we don't know all the factors that go into it, but we get to see every week how God is working in these people's lives, and it's, like I said, very humbling. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm sorry, just one quickly.
Yep.
I was just going to ask the success rate of ongoing relationships with some of these moms. Do you see a lot of connection continuing?
So she asked about the success rate of all of these relationships that begin and the how long term they are. That's a really good question. And how do you measure success in this? It's a little bit linear because a mom coming through our doors is success. Their kids are gonna hear the gospel or see or experience it in some way, and so that's right there. Praise God for that. And you'll learn more about this in training, but we have what we call the care team, and so that is all the avenues that I've talked about of opportunity for relationship for the mom to build. So we have the host family and the advocate and the support volunteer, and the actual ministry coordinator and church family. And our goal is for every name on the care team, spots to be filled. And so that doesn't happen for every single mom, but it is something that we try to do, is to give them every avenue that we can to have context for relationship that is unconditional. The funny thing is, in this, working with moms that are in poverty or in crisis, they don't have context for that. And so it's almost like the prodigal son, where they may take what they need and then they disappear for a while, and then they can come back, and you have context already and trust already is being built, and you just build on those layers, and it can be years of that. And we're used to it on the team at Together for Good, and we are trusting the Lord that He is doing so much more than we see or understand. And part of my story with our 2 extra children in our home have to do with that. And so yeah, we just trust the Lord with our loaves and fishes and say, this is what I have, and do what you will with it. So it's a good question. Is it okay to keep going here?
Ruth, I think that you asked a question about school. Is that, yeah. So the first time we hosted, we had like a really long, not just respite care. It was like 4 months, or a little over 4 months, right in the middle of the school year. The school district actually set up a bus to come and pick him up from our house. So he was going to school in Little Canada, up off of Centerville or whatever, the elementary there. And they picked him up every single day and dropped him off, and didn't even ask us about it. It was just all set up. The school district's like, we want him to stay enrolled here. We'll take care of getting him. So there is some, that's maybe won't happen every single time, but that also, it's one of those things. We were kind of like, well, I guess I could drop him off on my way to work because I'm kind of headed that way. But then the school was like, nope, we'll take care of it. So sometimes those things seem like a stress, but the Lord, like what Heather said, the Lord works that out, and there's an opportunity where you can still host, but not have to worry about those needs.
And you have your church family too. Maybe the Lord lays it on someone's heart to say, I can help with transportation. So did you have a question? Yes.
Have you had any pushback from the government or the foster care system?
Yeah, good question. And that's why we're a nonprofit. And part of the history of Together for Good is that it used to be another organization that claimed to be a Bible-believing, Christ-following organization, but our founder found that they were not holding to the same truths that this church would, and that I would, and she would, and so that's why she separated from the organization that she had first started kind of entering into this unique niche of ministry. And so yeah, it's actually surprising, in like Hennepin County, which is huge, lots of needs, lots of people coming through that need our services, and they call us and they know. I mean, we tell the moms when we do an intake to get to know them and see what their needs are, that this is a volunteer organization. Everybody here goes to Bible-believing churches, and will probably bring your child on a Sunday to church with them. Like, the moms understand that. And so, I don't know, people, if they don't want to use us, they don't call us, but we haven't really had any, and that's the Lord protecting us. We're very thankful for that. But we do try to be really careful and discerning, even what we ask our volunteers to step into, and we do interview these moms and try, trust that the Lord will reveal anything that is not safe. Yeah. Yes.
Do other government
Yeah. Yes. Yep. So the question was, do other social agencies call us for help? And yes, in every Ramsey, Dakota, Scott, Hennepin, all the counties, yes, we work with all of them. And that's where I think it's surprising that they know that we are explicitly a Christian Bible-believing organization, and I think they're just desperate for people, and so they do. Yes.
I used to be a public health nurse in Washington County.
Okay.
So I was on that end of things.
Yep.
And we used to freely refer
Yeah.
to any Christian organization that could
Yeah.
help relieve our burden a
Yep.
little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're not so concerned.
No. Yeah. Do you need me to repeat that? Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Maybe just to flesh out a question that Jason had a couple questions ago, but the emails that you send out or the texts, for Cassie and I, the emergency hosts we've been able to do is there's usually multiple names on that list with a little bit of a brief description of like who they are, maybe the ages of the kids.
Yep.
And, it could be, here's 2 dates that we're looking to fill, right? And you go, well, we can't, we're out of town this weekend, but guess what, this one's free. So there's some flexibility there, and obviously you have those emergency hostings that pop up as well. So you're able to kind of look at that, and that's how we got our last hosting is there was the 3 individuals that needed help, and Cassie and I said, well, we didn't feel like we were able to take all 3. We said, well, we could do this date, and we could take the 2-year-old girl and have her come, and then sure enough, then Ryan and Steph filled in the need for the other 2, right? So it's I would say it's very flexible, and like you said, you guys don't put any pressure. It's just, here's what we need help with. Let us know if you can with it, and you can kind of look at your own schedule and kind of make it work how you need to.
Most of these moms don't have time commitments. They have every weekend they'll take anything and everything. And the only time it's not is if it's a crisis situation or like a planned surgery or they have to serve time. Sometimes that's part of it.
Excuse me. So yeah, Matt, piggybacking on what Matt said when Jason asked that question. So it was a Monday night. I was with the boys and I was actually with Pastor John. We were out and Stephanie sends me a text and she's like, hey, there's 2 hostings that just came up on an email, which means they haven't been filled and people need help. And one of them was 2 kids for a week, 2 little kids for a weekend. But the one kid was completely scared of dogs. And if you've been to our house, you've seen the size of our dog. Even though he's as lazy and nice as can be, like that wouldn't have worked because if the kid's scared of dogs, you can't convince them the dog's not going to eat them. So we looked at the other one, but it was for a month. And we were kind of texting back and forth because I wasn't home. And I'm like, we're about ready for school. It's going to lead right up into school. Is this going to work? And then we were praying about it, and then like 2 days later, it was like, okay, we better just say yes. There's no reason not to. Well, then they were at our house Thursday. So when, we knew about it Monday, we're kind of praying about it, and then all of a sudden, hey, you got to pick them up Thursday night. And then that was in between that time. That's when Stephanie found out Cassie was getting the sister, and it was like, well, this makes sense. We can't say no. So it can. Right. Right. That's what's so encouraging. Because when Stephanie found out Cassie was taking the sister, she was like, there's no possible way we could say no. The kids can see each other. A month is a long time, for them to be apart. Well, now they have an opportunity to see each other. But Stephanie's going to share a couple things. Thanks, Heather, for sharing that. That was great. We're going to kind of jump in just for 5 minutes. She's going to share a couple things about just more ways to get involved in what. And I know a lot of you have reached out and talked to us, asked questions. She's also had people that have filled out on the checklist, and that'll still be floating around. But I'm going to let her kind of just give you a little bit more information specifically for us here at TCBC.
Okay. I know we briefly mentioned a couple of weeks ago about this clipboard. It is going to be in the back on a table. Please, I know some of you have reached out and said, I'd really be interested in this or that aspect of the ministry. Because life has been crazy for the last month, I really couldn't remember everything. And so it really is helpful just to keep things organized. If I know, when you're checking off the different opportunities, right now we just have listed hosting, prayer team, meals, errands, babysitting for long-term families, and supply closet. It doesn't mean, if I check it, I'm committed, I can't get out of this. It's just, we're gonna contact you and give you more information. So even if you're like, I'll list 3 things, but I really only wanna do 1, that's okay. We just would like to contact you, give more information, talk about, and see what role might be a better fit. I briefly, I'll really be quick, wanted to go over those different ministries, and if you have any questions, feel free to see us after. One of the things, we're not gonna be putting, when we get families, or when host families host children, we probably won't be putting those on the prayer chain like we did this last time. We're probably going to create another group. So if you would like to know when families are hosting and how to pray for them and maybe some specific, not a ton of information, but some information, there will be a special email that will go out to you. So please check that if you would like to be added to that, because it will be separate than the prayer chain. Another aspect that we have, obviously, is hosting. Please, even if you're not in a space that you can host, come to the training. It just gives way more information. It helps give background. I think it just will be really highly beneficial for our whole church body as these kids come in, because we have them in our Sunday school, in our nursery, and it just kind of gets us all on the same page. We are hoping to have a nursery available for children 8 and under. So we're still in the process of getting that worked out. Please do not let childcare be a reason you don't come, but we will have a sign up go out probably very soon about if you are able to come to the training, and also if you would need nursery help at that time. That will be only for our church body. So if you bring a friend, we can't offer childcare for those families, but for our church body, we can offer hopefully a nursery. And that will be September 28th on a Saturday morning. So yeah, again, a couple of the ministry opportunities: hosting, babysitting for long-term host families. Again, if you're doing a short-term respite care, you probably don't need someone to come watch the kids for a short weekend, but for families that take in kids for multiple weeks, it is just a really nice opportunity to maybe consider helping in that way. Another aspect that we're hoping, someone donated a freezer chest. We hope to have freezer meals. We kind of want to be proactive, and so we're actually asking if anyone in the next month, we're trying to collect 20 frozen freezer meals. We have tin foils in the back to put casseroles in, hot dishes. We also have jars if you want to freeze a soup. Becky Fremont is going to coordinate the freezer meals, so please see her if you want to have questions about, would this be okay to make, with that. We're just going to label it, we're going to date it, and we're going to freeze it in the hopes that when families come or when children come, we have a meal for host families ahead of time, so we don't have to do the meal train necessarily for that. And possibly even be able to send home a meal with the kids when they go home, so that mom has dinner for the kids that night. So that is a neat opportunity. Again, if you sign up to be on this meal train, it doesn't mean, every time someone is hosting, now you're getting a phone call and you don't know when that is, can you prepare? That's why we're doing the freezer. It's really just to keep it stocked. We will send out an email to the group who say, hey, we're interested in helping. Maybe you can't that week, but maybe 2 other families can. So please see Becky Fremont about that. We are collecting supplies for our supply closet. There's a pack and play in the front foyer. There's a clipboard attached that has all the list of supplies that we're hoping to collect over the next month. So please check that. If you're like, hey, I'm going to Walmart or Target or Costco, I can buy a pack of size 5 diapers, check it off on the list, purchase the item, put it in the pack and play. If for some reason it's been 2 weeks, maybe the item hasn't shown up, we'll probably just erase and open that space back up. So again, we understand things pop up, but if you're able to help, there is kind of a pre-organized list that just kind of helps get us started, so that we don't get 5 packs of size 2 diapers and none size 3, and it just kind of helps keep things organized. So please check that out. Christy Drager has offered to organize the supply closet. So if you have further questions about some of the supplies, please talk to her. Also, we're collecting clothing. Used items are okay. We are okay with that. So it doesn't have to be brand new or anything like that. And then maybe you aren't in a space that can host families or babysit or different things. We are looking for those who are maybe willing to run errands. There's always a need, like Heather mentioned earlier, like, hey, Cassie, do you need a pack and play? Do you need that? Hey, someone runs to church, picks up the supplies, drops them off. Maybe they need formula and stop at Target and grab formula. Again, it's organized, but we do need people to do that aspect as well. And lastly, we have a fund. So if maybe you don't have time to go shopping, but you wouldn't mind donating to that fund for some of those supplies, you would put an envelope in the offering plate, labeled Together for Good, but the check or money would be made out to Twin Cities Bible Church. So don't make it out to Together for Good, just label what it would be designated for. Thank you.
Okay, I will close our time here. One of the things, I don't know if you mentioned stuff, a prayer team. We really need people praying. The 3 children that we've had for the last 3 weeks, the 2 boys have been to the Sunday school classes, the Wednesday night classes, and, Chevy and Dominic and Carmen. Chevy, who was living next door to us with Ryan and Steph. I taught his class on Wednesday night, and we went over some words, particular words in Proverbs chapter 2. And Thursday night, he knew he was going home, and comes running over. It was about 9 o'clock. I'm watching the Twins game, and he comes running over with Hudson, and he calls me Grandpa. Grandpa, where is that in the Bible that you taught about? I want those words. Where is that? So he brought his Bible, that he got from our church. We opened it up. We showed it to him. He put a bookmark in that spot. So be praying for Chevy, for Dominic, for Carmen. We hope to get him back here. We hope to be able to pick him up sometimes and bring him to church. We'll see what the Lord has, but really sweet. So thank you. A lot of people have already expressed that you're going to help in so many ways, and so we're really looking forward to this. Well, let's pray, and we'll close our time here. Well, Heavenly Father, thank you for Heather, for coming out here, Lord, explaining more about Together for Good. Lord, we ask that you would bless that ministry in a huge way, Lord. Help our church to be part of your hands and feet, Lord, with our emphasis on spreading the gospel to these children, to these families, Lord. You will do that work, Lord, and we just want to ask that you would help us along that way, Lord. So again, bless this ministry, Lord. Bless the rest of our morning and our service here, Lord. We're so thankful for all the ways and all the things that you put in front of us in order to further the gospel. Thank you so much for all this, Lord. We pray all this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.